Well, you know, Stephen, I'm going to jump out of the box for a moment here and agree with you wholeheartedly about the origin of the giants, that they were there. I'm not sure I can believe that there's a secret group out there trying to genetically create them again. I hope that's not my own naivete here.
Well, you know, again, I don't think it's naivete, but can I tell you something?
Absolutely.
We have a hard time.
And I won't be offended either.
No. I mean, our naivety is based on the fact that most of us really, and I would say this because of the blessing of living in America, we want to believe the best, you know? The problem comes when you believe the best and you see that there are people that absolutely do not wish the best for you, but wish ultimate harm. We've talked about it on previous shows we've done about jihad and the fact of unleashing Ebola and some of these horrible, horrible biological pathogens. Who would do that, George? You wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But
somebody will. There are people that will do it.
There are people that will do it. So understand this, that when you're talking about genetics, you're not only talking about from 1999 on, you're talking about, you know, the boys from Brazil. You're talking about Mengele-type stuff. And you're then talking about, you know, all of the science that was up to it. And then you're talking about what I would call the arcane science. And again, there's so much stuff that is not given to us because, again, of national security. By the way, I wish they would be honest and call it national insecurity, okay? I believe the American people are a lot brighter and the people could handle the truth. And my statement is if they won't give us the truth, that means they want to control us with the lack of truth or with a lie.
Do you know what would happen if they built giants that ran amok? What a disaster this could be.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think the psychology will be that if there is real or imagined, if you will, the battle in outer space comes to the battle on Earth? If let's say this, let's say in the next 2 weeks, let's say instead of one incident, let's say we hear of 6 to 8 incidents, George, where there are actually flying saucers opening up with some kind of particle beam blasting people.
Funny you bring that up. I just had a story in India of some people who have been blasted by a huge sphere-type object, and they've been burned.
You got it. So that's one instant. What happens if it turns to 6, 8, or 12?
Then we got a problem.
Then we got a problem. Okay.
Then we have panic.
Yeah. Now remember when Whitley Strieber wrote Communion, okay?
Sure.
The neat thing about that is in Whitley's own words, the fascinating thing about the aliens and the giants, and I mean this, they're both sex fiends, okay? There are instances, I got to tell you, a specific incident in Guayaquil, Ecuador, that was chronicled by Pedro Cieza, and I may be pronouncing his name wrong, de Leon. He said this. The Ecuadorian giants were destroyed by thunderbolts in 1543. The teeth found with the giant skulls and bones, they were 3 fingers broad and 4 fingers long. He said they were 18 feet tall. He said in those days you could actually see on the rocks where the thunderbolts had hit them, okay? The reason why they also record the thunderbolts is that these guys, being 18 feet tall, were sexually going after the women, and I don't mean to be crude, but the bottom line is it killed the women, okay? And the point that I'm trying to make is that when you've got such specific chronicles, and usually, you know, the guys doing the chronicling aren't out there trying to just fit the history to fit their chief belief. You've got incidents where some of these guys' molars make a fist, George. Some of their molars was bigger than your fist. That's a big mouth. That's a pretty big tooth to pull if you're a dentist, isn't it? Yeah, and some of these guys had 40-inch feet. How big would someone with a 40-inch foot, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I got news for you. There's no way to even begin to fathom the stride of someone like that until you realize that they can outrun horses.
Stephen, a quick question out of Kennewick, Washington, and this guy is dead serious. He says, my daughter has 6 toes on each foot. What does this mean? Is this some kind of a genetic sign, or, you know, just
my
a fluke?
statement is, if she doesn't have 6 fingers, 6 toes, and double sets of teeth, he doesn't have to worry. But it is interesting. A little baby that belongs to one of my ex-secretaries had 6 fingers on one toe. 6 fingers on one hand, but not 6 fingers on the toes. Unless they have toes, if they had toes and fingers, I'd tell him point blank that she's got something interesting going on with her.
That is bizarre. If you can imagine a little girl with that.
Right, and again, you know, I know this sounds almost, and I don't mean it to sound cynical, but when you talk about guys that had double sets of teeth, I mean, you're talking about, in the Old Testament, talks about the lion men of Moab. And you know, interesting, by the way, he's calling from Kennewick. Did he send you that from Kennewick, Washington?
Yes.
You know, there's a fight going on over the Kennewick man, which is interesting because in the United States there's a law that anything that is found of antiquity is automatically assumed to be Native American. But when they ran the tests, the genetic DNA tests on Kennewick man, they found out he was pretty much European in about 3,000 years, I think 3,000 to 3,500 BC, okay?
Stephen, are you afraid at all of the giants in the research you've done, or are you concerned about the future, a few years down the line here?
Oh, absolutely. I'm concerned about the future because, again, I believe that with what's going on, and obviously I believe at some point we're going to undergo, whether it's a staged or an implemented or a coerced, battle, if you will, with the guys from outer space. I think that we've got to have the knowledge. See, George, I believe with what I've done in Genesis 6, I've presented kind of, I guess, the key to unlocking history. And with the sister book that's Aliens and Fallen Angels, the Sexual Corruption of the Human Race, it's taking away the fear factor. It's not adding to it. But I can tell you that what concerns me is, again, that people who seem to be preoccupied with the mundane things of life. When I say the mundane things, just a day-to-day grind, when a lot of this stuff starts to happening, we're going to see a lot of people losing it. In other words, you know, it's going to flip them out. And I think if they have the knowledge base and they see how all this relates in history, I think it makes, you know, what could be considered scary and unnerving subject matter, I think it can make it a lot more palatable. Let's face it, most people in America, or 21st century America now, don't have to deal, they think, with the Middle Ages and demons and all the stuff that goes along with that, but I'm suggesting that all that stuff's going to come to the forefront. And again, George, I think that by having such a, and this thing is a reference book because, I mean, the whole half of it is an encyclopedia of this stuff. I think it's put it together in such a way that there's no scare factor, but it's absolutely fascinating. And like I say, it gives you a groundwork to understand not only prehistoric history and ancient history, and by the way, my definition of prehistoric is prior to Adam and Eve, and the point being is it explains a lot of the monuments and who built them. Again, if you've got 10 guys that are 26 feet tall and they can each carry 5 tons, it makes 50-ton, blocks of stone pretty manageable as, trying to come up with a certain amount of slaves with a certain incline to the ramp and certain ropes. It's just nonsense the way that modern history and ancient history has been presented in modern times.
First-time caller, you are on the air with Stephen Quayle on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Yeah. My name is Reed.
Well, hello, Reed.
How you doing tonight?
We are doing well. Thanks.
Listen, I just want to tell you, George, you're just a real worthy substitute for Art while he's out. I listen to you every night. I don't get much sleep. It's
yeah, me either.
Intriguing, fascinating topic tonight. Steve, I got to hand it to you. You probably put in so much research in this and that. I have a couple of stories, too, about these giants. First of all, about 6 months ago, a man called Art and invited him to take a trip to his property in Utah, where he's way out like in southern Utah, St. George area, and he had a cave that he discovered on his property and had 3 of these giant mummies in there. They were like 12 feet long. Art was going to take him up on it. I don't know if he ever went out there or not, but it's awfully funny. You don't hear about it anymore. It got shut up real fast. I think probably the Smithsonian got a hold of it and got the bones and took them away. I haven't heard any more about it, but Art might know something about it. But I'm sure this ties in with what you're talking about. Also, in the latter part of the 1940s, after World War II, there was a miner that was going down the Colorado River, and he discovered this cave. And in this cave, he went in there, and there was this huge monolith. I mean, they estimated the largest one was 180 tons, standing erect, with hieroglyphic type writings on it. I mean, there was monoliths all over this cave, and there was over 5,000 these giant mummies in there. They were huge, people.
5,000 of them?
5,000 of them. And they shut it up real fast. The FBI went in there. They extracted the mummies. From what I heard, they went into the Smithsonian and were buried, of course, from the public. They don't want to let this kind of information out and frighten everybody, but they tried to seal up the cave with dynamite, but they blew the hole bigger. And I guess they just had a hell of a time sealing the cave up. But this was this is a fact, you know, and they've got these artifacts in the Smithsonian to this day. Also, I've also heard that they've also got the, you know, Noah's Ark is a real thing, okay, and they retrieved our archaeologists retrieved through the government the alabaster sarcophagus of Noah, and they also have whatever his remains are.
Well, you know, Stephen, have you ever heard anything about that? You know,
Well, yeah, especially from the time the supposed first of all, I believe obviously Noah's Ark is real. I believe that they have located it. I have heard rumors about the alabaster sarcophagus. The interesting thing is that there are people that claim it's on the top of Mount Ararat who have actually gone up to it. One of the former astronauts, I think, Irvin went up there. And, so that doesn't surprise me. I want to thank you, Reed, for sharing that story about southern Utah and the Grand Canyon, because, again, if people want to read the most fascinating thing in 1905, Kincaid found also a labyrinth with mummies, giant mummies, and hieroglyphics, and everything in the area of the Grand Canyon has an Egyptian name. And you ask yourself, okay, how does that happen that something in, the Colorado River in Utah or wherever, forgive me, not Utah, but Colorado, where that Arizona, where that can happen, how is it that they all have Egyptian names? And the obvious answer to that is that it had to have been passed down for a long time.